The boy Blackbeard, I'm back. What's happening? Salute, salute, salute. We're going to continue this history dealing with the legends of the Aboriginal Amaru Meru, which is basically the Christ energy of the Americas, which dates all the way back to the times of Mu and Lemuria. All right. So we already know about Atlantis in the Atlantic, but we also have to include Mu and Lemuria of the Pacific. So I kind of introduced that in the previous tape when I dealt with Amaru Meru. But in this one, I want to kind of continue that. Also, something I introduced in the last tape, we talked about consonants and vowels, okay? And how consonants are constant through time. How consonants are constant through time. And the consonants that we were dealing with are the MR, okay? The MR. Some of us know the MR and being in the name Mr. or also in the name Mrs. So they are titles to people. So we want to formally greet a man. We say Mr. John, Mr. Allen, Mr. Harry. OK, so we put a Mr. in front of it. When we want to formally, greet a woman, we say Mrs. Sally, Mrs. Tammy, you know what I'm saying? Mrs. Ashley. So it's a form of a title, and it can be applied to anybody who deserves that title. So when you meet people and you respect them, don't you say Mr. and Mrs.? Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the ancient world, that MR had the same energy and it had the same respect to it. Except you all know the word as Meru, or some of you may know the word as More. So in the ancient world, the people who were the high priests or the high priestesses, they were given that designation, okay, of the Meru or the so-called More. All right. And not only were they given this designation, but it was a whole entire nation of people. So I don't want you all to think that it may have been just a certain group. OK, there was a point in time where all Aboriginal people were referred to as Meru or Aboriginal high priests and high priestesses. I'll give you a picture real quick. So as you can see right here, we have some of the Aboriginal Autochthons of Central and South America and North America. OK, people known as the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, etc. OK, so we talk about the people of Amaru Meru. These are who we are talking about. Let's get a good look at them. All right. You can see the copper color Aboriginal feature. People with bronze toned flesh. The gold toned flesh. You see these different Aboriginals. These are the high priest people. See all these different Aboriginals? High priest people. These are the Meru. Modern day, we may say the word More. So there was a point in time now where all of us were viewed as high priests and high priestesses. Because isn't there a time where all the children of Israel have to do their own studying and they all have to become high priests and high priestesses of the Most High or the Great Spirit? So there's not going to be a point where you're going to have some leader. You're going to have to become Christ itself. That's what the whole point of Yeshua was. So when we talk about Amaru Meru, when we talk about Heru, when we talk about Yeshu, or as in Yeshua, these are all Christ archetypes of the ancient Americas. And these are the people behind those legends. Okay, so just wanted y'all to get a good look at who the people we are talking about. These are the ancestors of the Aboriginal American, the ancestors of everybody listening to this tape that calls themselves Negro, Black, African American, or whatever. All right. So continuing on, there was also a point in time where the ancient Aboriginal people knew the sciences of the zodiac, they knew the sciences of nature, and they knew the sciences of supernature. Okay, and this is how they were building pyramids. So this is another reason now why you all see that pyramid on the back of your dollar bill, because it's supposed to be an Aboriginal American pyramid, which are step pyramids. Have you ever noticed that all the American pyramids are step pyramids, and that the pyramids that you see in so-called Africa, they are more smooth, or rather they're not step pyramids like ours are over here. Some of the older ones are step pyramids, but over here you see that the step pyramid design was more frequently used. So on the back of the dollar bill, it's actually supposed to be a pyramid that looks a little more like this. Okay. Also, we talked about the word Meru and how the word Meru is referring to Amaru Meru, or the ancient Americas. All right. And we're going to go deeper into the Amaru Meru in a minute. But I want you to also get a look at another picture before we go deeper. Now, as we can see right here, we have a picture of the descendants of Mu and Lemuria. Okay. So these are the ancient Americans. Okay. So these are the ancestors of so-called black people, so-called Negroes, so-called African Americans. This is them. So when we talk about the Lemurians, the Atlanteans, the people of Mu, after the flood happened on Lemuria, after Mu was, submerged under the oceans, after Atlantis fell, these people came to the Americas, and some of them were already here too now. So even during the times of Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis, even North and South Central America was popping even then. But nevertheless, when Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis fell, some of the people of the Pacific that were in Mu and Lemuria, they went into Asia, and they went into what we know of as India. And some of the people that were in the Atlantic or Atlantis, they went to what we call Europe, and they went to what we call Africa. And some of them came to America as well. But nevertheless, that's who these people are. Also, look right here. You can see that on this map, they are calling, not only are they calling these lands America or Amaru Meru, and they are calling, well, clearly you can see that these people have to be Americans, right? If this is American, then we would all agree that these are Americans, right? Copper colored people, going back to the Webster Dictionary of 1828. So if these are the Aboriginal Americans, what is this they calling Mare up here? Are they calling this ocean Mare? So Mare sounds a lot like Meru, doesn't it? Didn't I say that the consonants are constant and that the consonant follows you throughout time and that a vowel is interchangeable? So you have A, E, I, O, U. It can be interarranged or it can be included with the consonant MR, any formal fashion. Okay. But as you can see right here, they're naming this Mare. So when I see Mare, that lets me know that this is also Meru, and it also could be the term more, M-O-O-R. Because as I say, A-E-I-O-U and sometimes Y. So we may be seeing the word M-O-O-R, but it really may be M-E-R-U, excuse me. All right. So don't let the vowel trick you. The vowel can be placed anywhere, but a lot of the times the vowels can be interchangeable. So I just wanted to show you that they're naming this Mare or America or America, just like you have Amaru Meru. All right. And of course, these are the Americans. So now that we have a good visual of the people of Amaru Meru or the Meru. So if I say the Meru, then that's also saying the Aboriginal American. OK, now, some of you all don't like that word more, which is fine. I can understand that because it can confuse some things. But if I say Meru, you better know exactly what I'm talking about, because that refers to Amaru Meru. And if you think that's anywhere else other than America, that means you don't know your own indigenous history like you claim you do. All right. So that woman you see in front of her, this is a woman of Meru. All right. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to continue in an article that I was reading. Once again, it can be found on AtlantisRisingMagazine.com, AtlantisRisingMagazine.com. And it is an article dealing with Portal to Worlds Unknown. And it's talking about Amaru Meru. So what I want everybody to do for a homework assignment is to go and research Amaru Meru. Now, I don't know if some of you all may have heard of this before. Some of you may have. Some of you may not have. I don't know. But the point is that, this is put out there now, and this has to be included in the history. So we already beyond, talking about Moors across the Atlantic Ocean, some people in Southern Europe and the coast of Africa, and how they may have been using the consonants MR and the history of the word Moor as it pertains to them. We passed that. We get that. But now we're dealing with the Amaru Meru, which deals with the Americas, and it has nothing to do with those people over there. And you all have to know the history of that, because you're still going to have to ask yourself, where did the word America come from? And if you think that it came from some cracker named Amerigo Vespucci or some European explorer, then you are highly mistaken. I'm sorry, but you just are. You're highly mistaken if you don't know that the origin of the word America comes from the Aboriginal people of these lands, that word has a history with them. It's not a foreign word. OK, and if we want to get back into more of the original usages of the word, then that's when we get into Amaru Meru and we get into Meru. All right. So let's go into a little bit of these readings. Now, I went through this before, but I'll go through it again. Who or what does the name Amaru Meru refer to? Details of accounts and explanations vary, but there is a general agreement that the name refers to a noble personage, typically described as a sage or a priest. So the first thing is that the word Meru refers to a sage or a priest, or Amaru Meru refers to sages and priestesses. So that means there was a point in time that all of us were referred to as sages and priestesses. Now we have the modern understanding that thinking this may be a high priest or a sage for every community. That's because the third eye has been shut off and the people have taken on the way of the Goyim. That is why we have that now. That's why we have that Messiah complex, and we so used to somebody coming to save us, because we have taken on the way of the human cattle or the Goyim, and we need somebody to lead us. That's why in the Hebrew Old Testament, most of the patriarchs, they are shepherds, aren't they? They're shepherds. And what do shepherds do? They lead a bunch of sheep, a bunch of lost sheep. And usually the only one who has consciousness of what's going on is the good shepherd, or the one who's leading the sheep. That's why King David takes that archetype. That's why Yeshua takes that archetype. And that's why we are familiar with those patriarchs being associated with shepherds. Why do you think that when Moses was kicked out of, or really when he left Egypt, and he had to spend, years and years and years in the wilderness, but one of his tasks is he had to basically be a goats herdsman or a shepherd, for sheep. And the reason why the Most High was training him doing this with his new family that he found in the desert was because he was going to have to later day go back and free those sleep sheep, which were those Hebrews up under the Egyptian captivity. So most of us as so-called black people are in the stage of the sheep. And that's why we still need a leader, and we still looking for some hero. Whereas we're supposed to be a whole race of priests or a whole race of sages leading ourselves and leading the world as a whole. So it's very, very interesting how some people don't want to be called a Moor or a Meru, let's say, not knowing that the word really is referring to the original high priest people. And even think about how you could be called a Meru or a Moor strictly based on your skin tone. So it didn't matter where you lived at, nor did it matter what your religion or spirituality was. You were immediately viewed as a high priest or a high priestess. So look how we went from that to now we arguing about, who's a Moor and some, and all this other shit. And before I go into the reading, let me say this. And I kind of said it in the previous tape. Because we know that Mount Meru, the Meru, Amaru Meru, because we know that has a lot to do with the Americas and the Aboriginal Americans' identity, somewhere along the lines that this word was muddied up, and this whole Moor Science Temple and a lot of those government agents that are included in that stuff, because even in some of that, it was really muddied up from, I believe, what Noble Drew Ali wanted to do. A lot of people got involved in that and had different, beliefs, and were a little more capitalistic and wanted money, because anybody that is paying taxes, or anybody that is 501c3, let's say, tax exempt, that means that you are in some kind of allegiance with the government. You're not a separate entity. OK, you're just not. So honestly, is there a form of Aboriginal government? Of course it is. But I think that it is excluded of all that stuff. OK. And that is why you see a lot of the Aboriginal people dealing with, the Moorish side of the stuff. They get in conflict with some of these people that are dealing with this Aboriginal history, because I know some of you are listening to this, maybe either be people that's playing into this and perpetuating it, or maybe you may be a brother or sister that have just seen some of this in your studies. But what I'm here to tell you is that I'm not on either side of that. OK, I'm trying to be objective with this. Like I said, I'm bringing this out with the Amaru Meru because this goes into the origins of the name America. And you have the right to know that as an Aboriginal American, because somebody lied to you and told you that it came from Amerigo Vespucci, but that's not true. I'm bringing it out because the Garden of Eden, which is actually the spiritual etheric home of the Israelites or the so-called Hebrews or the Aboriginals, this place was also known as Mount Meru. And we can go back to the Sanskrit text of ancient India or the ancient Vedic text, and they even named the place that their gods come from as Mount Meru. OK. So you also have a right to know that, because that is the Americas. Okay. There's even a lot of books out there that will say that after the deluge, or, what's known as the flood, that the continents or the lands of the Americas were the first to rise out of the waters. So that means that all the early civilizations post the flood were in the Americas. So the reason why I'm bringing out that Meru is to kind of clean up what Aboriginal American people are thinking when they hearing the word more, or they hear anything involving the consonants MR. Because I don't want anybody to, just get caught up in that, because it's silly. I mean, arguing about this stuff. And then I wrap it up with this. Were there some people across the Atlantic, as we said in the previous tape, that may have been from the nations of so-called Morocco, some of these Islamic countries, and even some of these Christian countries, because they were in working with each other? Did some of them have a part in colonizing the Americas? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But there were also certain Aboriginal people of that Islamic Empire and the Holy Roman Empire that did not want to colonize the Americas. Okay. So there were certain people across the waters we were cool with, and there were certain people we were not cool with. So we don't want to make no general statement and just say that these people were good and these people were bad, because that's silly. Okay. It is. All right. It is. And if I got to go into the whole history and destroy you niggas' egos and show y'all how the Aboriginal high priests of the Americas, how much they sold us out, then I will do that. That ain't have nothing to do with no fucking body coming across no Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean with no kind of foreign government or no kind of colonialism. So, going back to what I was reading. So it says the word Meru, if it comes from Sanskrit, can mean high. Think of the sacred Mount Meru on various Eastern cosmologies, the center of the universe and the abode of the gods. So if America is Meru, they saying that this is the center of the universe and the abodes of the gods. And the word Meru, when it comes deal with the Sanskrit, it means high. So let's continue. The Lemurian Council of the Great White Hierarchy instructed Amaru Meru to take sacred records and objects, including a golden disk of the sun, to the Lake Titicaca area of the Andes, and there establish a mystery school to perpetuate the Lemurian knowledge and wisdom. Thus was established the Brotherhood of the Sun and the monastery of the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays. Amaru Meru did not travel alone, but according to Williamson, he was accompanied by his female companion and aspect, also known as Arama Mara or Goddess Meru. The solar sun disk which Amaru Meru so closely guarded was not just a relic, but a scientific instrument of great power. Among other things, it could alter consciousness, tap into the universal mind and records, essentially the Akashic records, and even cause earthquakes and other earth changes. It was a dangerous device if used incorrectly. So let's read this thing from the top. So it first says that the Lemurian Council of the Great White Hierarchy, white as in spiritual, not white people, but these ancestral etheric spirits instructed Amaru Meru, which was a high priest from Mu or Lemuria, to take all that sacred information, including this golden disk of the sun, to the Lake Titicaca area of the Andes, and to establish a mystery school to perpetuate the Lemurian knowledge and wisdom. So when we talk about the serpentine wisdom or land of the plumed serpent, because that's ultimately what America is, these high priests and high priestesses, they were high priests and high priestesses of the serpentine wisdom. And this wisdom comes from Lemuria or Mu. So if you are an Aboriginal American, if you wanted to know out of all the so-called animal archetypes, which one is more closely associated with you, it would be the alligator and the serpent or the snake or the dragon. Okay. So if you wanted to know what is my symbol as an Aboriginal American, it would be the serpent or the alligator or the dragon. More in particular, though, I would deal with the alligator. So you can deal with the serpent or the alligator. You're dealing with both of them, and you're good to go. So if you want to look at a powerful animal, think about the powerful anaconda, the giant anaconda of South America, and the Amazon. Okay. The powerful, giant, massive, destructive anaconda. All right. That's an ancient Aboriginal symbol. All right. Then it goes also on to say that Amaru Meru was accompanied by his female companion known as Arema Mara, or the goddess Meru. So there go the Aboriginal woman right there. So this sister you see right here would be Goddess Meru. This is Goddess Meru right here. So, you know, once again, that just proves the point that the Aboriginal women have a role in this, and that this is not, you know, something where y'all can just sit on the sidelines and think that niggas is just supposed to be saving y'all. This land is just as much yours as it is ours, and you just as much as accountable for this as we are. So as Aboriginal men, of course, we do have a duty as far as leadership, you know, the role we play in the family, and the role we play as providers. We do have that. But, you know, as Aboriginal women, you all have a role too. You have a role too. So as you can see right here, and the Aboriginal man, he is supposed to be with his own woman, known as Goddess Meru. Now, however you take that, that's up to you. But nevertheless, it's in the work. So let me read this one more time so the women can know, and a lot of those super patriarchal mentality men will know. Because when you look at the ancient Americas too, you know, you're not only looking at a matriarchy, but you're looking at a patriarchy kind of going along with it. So the men and the women had, they had their equal power. You know, you had the great Khan, okay, which would be the great leader of Israel, or the king of Israel. You would have that, but you also would have the high priestesses, you know, who would be used for counsel, used to bounce ideas off of, etc. Okay, so it was a balanced society between the men and the women. So we don't need this whole shit about this whole egoism about who's ruling who. You know, if people just play their role, then you will see that that's not even necessary. All right. So Amaru Meru, this high priest, was accompanied by a high priestess known as Arema Mara, or the goddess Meru. Okay. All right. Now, which is very, very interesting and very, very funny. And although, you know, now when I say this, you got to remember that the human archetype has a personality and ego and can go astray. But I find it very, very interesting how Amaru Meru was accompanied by a female goddess, or a female priestess known as Arema Mara. And you have this woman in the whole love and hip hop. Her name is Amara La Negra. So you have this woman named Amara La Negra. And then you have the companion of Amaru Meru, who is known as Arema Mara. So you see how things ancestrally keep showing back up. And sometimes, you know, although the personality and ego can be very, very lost, but we don't really be knowing behind the person what energy is really using that person. Okay. So that means that if she is Amara La Negra and Amaru Meru was accompanied by a goddess named Goddess Meru, then more than likely she looked like the woman that's named Amara La Negra. So once again, that proves that the indigenous American women, you know, for these white looking pale Native American women, you all are not the original Aboriginal women. You know, we know who the Aboriginal indigenous women are. You know, we know how they look. This is exactly how they look right here. If we want to, let's go and do this again. This is how the indigenous American women look. So-called Negro woman, so-called black woman, this is how they look. Okay. So whether the sister had the weave in or whether it was her natural hair, it didn't matter. This is how they look. I got an aunt that looked just like this. This looked like a younger version of one of my aunts. So this is the indigenous Aboriginal woman. This is not a Native American. This is an Aboriginal American. So this is how Goddess Meru look. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time with that. Because I do know that I got women in the Midnight Mirage, you know. And Blackbeard fought with the women real hard. But anyway, so it said that this solar disc that Amaru Meru had, that it could alter consciousness, it could tap into the universal mind and records, and it could even cause earthquakes and other earth changes. So that means that in the times of Mu and Lemuria, that our ancestors had some pretty powerful devices. And it says they had the ability to alter consciousness, to tap into the universal mind, and even cause earthquakes. So when Mu and Lemuria fell, maybe some of our ancestors had these, super technological devices that were far greater than anything we could imagine today. But, through conflicts and through ego, and they may have had battles with each other. And that may have been where the Aboriginal American, through that tribal warfare, where we inherited that from. That may have been the karma from our ancestors in Mu and Lemuria, from when they used their spiritual devices, from when their third eyes were open. And they went to war with each other and did other things like that, harmed the land, and probably got into certain genetic, manipulation. Because when we talk about the XIII experiments, this goes back to the times of Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. So this was also included, just them understanding, of course, the genome of animals and the human, but them starting to try to splice and mix DNA. So if we want to know really where these Neanderthals come from, this is where the origins of these Neanderthals come from our ancestors who were highly technological and highly advanced, highly scientific, highly spiritual. And they had the ability to do things that we would call magic today. So that's another part of the history that a lot of you all are not going to be able to get when it comes to the XIII thing. And it comes to the super technology of Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. Because a lot of people still not really seeing it, being able to see that. They can't really still explain how this Neanderthal hominid got here. They want to keep trying to say that he's a genetic mutation. Yeah, he's a genetic mutation. But you got to ask yourself, how did the genes mutate? Genes are eternal. You know what I'm saying? That's subatomic. How did that genetically mutate? And then how did it happen to where it was able to affect massive populations? This is a controlled experiment, people. So when we talk about the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, and it says right here how they had devices that could alter consciousness, tap into the Akashic records of the universal mind, and even cause earthquakes and other changes. And these were dangerous devices if used incorrectly. We know that some people use them incorrectly. So they was going to war with each other. So when we talk about, the Noah's flood, although in the Bible we say, it says things like God and etc. But for lack of better words, this is what was kind of going on with the people. They had technology and they were way further more advanced than we are today. And they really got themselves into some shit. I mean, they got themselves into some real shit. And it completely fucked up everything. So, they had scientific experiments, scientific instruments. And the Christ hero, or one of them at least, that was incarnated in the early times of America, Amaru Meru, had to guide and hide some of these relics and some of these scientific instruments, him and his goddess. So continuing, it says that various commenters, such as the modern author, researcher, and the Grand Prior of the International Order of Gnostic Templars, Mark Amaru Pinkham, expand on the legend, stating that Amaru Meru became the first priest king of the Incas, in which guise he was known as Manco Capac or Manco Capac. According to Pinkham, Capac means spiritually wealthy or serpent wisdom, although others translate Capac as meaning or as a title meaning lord or warlord. Manco can mean king. Interestingly, perhaps tellingly, according to some legends, Manco Capac was the son of Inti, the Incan sun god. Manco Capac and his siblings, sent to earth by Inti, emerged from the cave of Pakari Tambo, and at his birth he had him with a golden staff mounted by a solar disk. From Pakari Tambo, he traveled by underground caves to Cusco, where he built a temple dedicated to the sun. Manco Capac not only founded the kingdom of Cusco, the forerunner of the Inca Empire, but brought a code of law and accompanying civilizing ways to formerly unruly people. He was essentially a founding father And I cannot help but think that the story of his emergence from the cave and the founding or refounding of civilization fits the bigger picture of very early civilizations having been devastated by a major solar outburst. So let's go from the top down. So first it says that this guy, who is a author and a researcher of the International Order of Gnostic Templars named Mark Pinkham, expands on the legend and states that Amaru Meru was the first priest king of the Incas. So Amaru Meru was the first priest king of the Incas, or the Incan Empire. And it said that he also had another name, which was Manco Capac. And it says that the name Capac means spiritually wealthy or serpent wisdom. Or the name Capac could be a title meaning lord or warlord. And then Manco means king. Now I find that very, very interesting how you have Tupac Amaru Shakur. Now, the first thing is that it's the name Tupac. Now, we have a lot of conspiracy and stuff out there about this brother because, we know because he had been a government agent and his entire background was basically a COINTELPRO thing where they made up a name, because it would make a lot of sense that if he has a created name and his real name isn't Tupac Amaru Shakur, that they would give this Aboriginal American this title as being this warlord or this spiritually wealthy serpent wisdom or this serpent king, and how he had the whole thug movement and he's looked at as this Christ figure to so-called black people. So I find it very, very interesting that this name Capac means spiritually wealthy. Also in Egypt or Tamari, the Ka is also known as the spirit, and you have the Ba and the soul. So it just shows that connection between these cultures. But then it also goes on to say that this name Manco Capac means, spiritually wealthy, serpent wisdom, or it could be the king of serpent wisdom or the lord of serpent wisdom. So once again, showing you America, land of the plumed serpent, showing you that the serpent is the ancient symbol of the Americas, basically. It goes also on to say that Manco Capac or Amaru Meru was the son of Inti, which was an Incan sun god. So once again, showing you that Christ energy, and that he was sent to earth to civilize basically the people, because the peoples had lived in a civilization which was destroyed, and he came back to bring peace, So that's very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. It says that perhaps distinct from the deeply legendary Manco Capac, but conflated with this first Manco Capac is presumably historical Manco Capac, who was indeed the founder of a kingdom that would ultimately expand to become the Inca Empire. And then it goes also on to say that that the spirit of Amaru Meru is immortal. So to wrap it up, it says that returning to snake and serpent themes, Mark Pinkham also contends that the name Amaru means serpent or refers to serpent wisdom. Thus, the doorway of Amaru Meru can also be considered doorway of the portal of the serpents. I know that snakes or serpents are often viewed as symbols of knowledge, consciousness, and wisdom, and they also represent immortality. So that just shows you that Amaru Meru, land of the serpent people, which is basically dealing with the wisdom, land of the immortal wisdom people. So it says that a secret cult may be awaiting to return of the sage Amaru Meru to usher in a new golden age on earth. So ultimately, this article is just going into how this Amaru Meru Christ energy will reemerge through the Americas. Okay, to bring knowledge, consciousness, and wisdom, serpentine wisdom. So if the Americans are the serpent people, a high priest class of people that are told that one day will bring a golden age of wisdom to the planet, then now we know what all this stuff is going on with us. This whole reemergence of the Aboriginal American history, the whole YouTube phenomenon, this is basically the last end of that whole conscious community stuff. This is where it's really going, because this ties the national inheritance, the birthright, and the spirituality all in one. And that's why I don't want nobody out there, at least that's listening to my stuff, to get caught up in this battle between the Moors of Morocco and That shit is just irrelevant, man. We need to be dealing with the indigenous American shit. I don't give a fuck about no Moors and no Morocco or no Europe. I really, really don't. So that's what it is. So Amaru Meru is the ancient Incan priest. And Amaru Meru is also an ancient Christ energy. So Amaru Meru is Christ energy. That's what it is, of the American.